What's happening? Today, I'm gonna do something completely ridiculous. I have a Tony Smith Sunburst Stratocaster that I bought when I was over in Japan for like nothing. I think I paid like 2,500 yen, which is about $22 or $23, depending on the exchange rate. It is a solid body that's in fairly good shape. However, the neck pocket is trash. The bridge was misaligned. So I filled the bridge. I did not film all of that, but I'm about to do something completely ridiculous that may actually work really well to fix the sloppy neck pocket. And I'll show you what I did to fix the crooked bridge. I'm not completely finished with that part yet, but I'll show it to you. So what I've done is, if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you can get, and again, I need to preface this by saying, if this was an expensive, vintage, nice, whatever guitar, I would definitely not do this way. Because again, this is not probably the correct way to do this. I'll be honest, I don't know that that I'm aware of, that there's a correct way to fix a neck pocket that's bad. The best way to do it would probably be to take some hardwood and, you know, use a router and route a blank billet to go in there and glue it, and then just completely reroute the neck. I'm not gonna do that with a $25 guitar. So what I did is I went to your friendly Lowe's and I got a roll of, this is oak. I really wanted birch, but they were out of it because birch I think would have a little bit tighter grain and probably work better. But this is pre-glued veneer that you iron on. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it down into the neck slot, and I'm going to iron it into place. And then once it's all in place, I'm going to use an X-Acto knife to trim the top off, and then we will sand slightly on the neck and in the gap to get the neck to fit correctly. It's not gonna look great, but again, this is a $25 parts caster that I use just to experiment with for repairs and stuff. You'll notice here, a little bit of glare, but the bridge screws were not aligned correctly at all. They were like crooked, and they're actually too far back. So it makes the scale length slightly too long. So when you have the saddles pushed all the way forward, you're still outside of the scale length. And so what ends up happening is it won't intonate correctly. So I took some hardwood birch dowels. I drilled the holes out a little bit larger and glued the dowels in place, and then used a chisel to take the tops off. My chisel is not that great, so there's some splintering. So what I did is I just put wood filler over the top of it. Again, ideally when you do this, you'd use like maple dowels and you'd cut them off perfectly. But again, this is just my way of doing it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sand these flat, and then I'll reinstall the bridge at the correct distance and in the correct spot. And then you probably won't ever see these because the bridge will be over the top of it. So once I do that, I'll film that too and make that a different video. But like I said, this is just a parts caster strat that I experiment with, just to kind of figure out how to fix things. So I'm not real sure that filming this is a great idea because I'm scared I'm gonna burn myself. But we'll get going here and figure out if we can make this work or not. You can use an iron for all sorts of stuff with guitar repairs. They're really good for pulling. You use an iron and a wet cloth, and you can pull dents out of an unfinished body. I think you can do it on a finished body too, depending on the type of finish. I've never actually tried it on a finished body, but I have seen it work on an unfinished body. So all I'm doing is just trying to run this along there and get it glued in as good as possible. This is not a perfect way to do this. I'm almost tempted to use my soldering iron and run it along there, because I've got an old soldering iron that would probably work better than this. But we're trying just to get it ironed in there. Because you want it to be as seated and as tight as possible. I have a feeling that I'm gonna end up making this too tight. So we'll see. I tell you what, you guys probably don't want to watch all this, so let me finish doing this. If I switch to a soldering iron, I'll film it again. So what I did was I got me a little flexible sanding block here, and I'll be honest, I don't really want to sand in the pocket too much because it's a little rough, and I think that'll probably be better to kind of grab. All I'm really trying to do is gently sand around the top so that the rough edge is kind of knocked down a little bit. Like I said, this is not meant to be an expert repair. This is meant to just make the neck fit tightly. And I'm gonna have to sand the top of this thing with like 1000 grit anyway, because it's got some stuff going on. And I'm gonna kind of knock the gloss down a little bit to make it look older. So I'm not that worried about dinging up the edges here. Too bad, although I really don't want it. That's starting to look kind of bad. And then we're pretty tight now. But what I've noticed is it doesn't fit exactly correct. And what I may do is you really can't tell too much until you get right up on it. But, I mean, it's tight. I'm probably gonna sand the heel just a little bit to try to get a little bit better contact. And like I said, this is not meant to be like Fender Custom Shop here. I'm just trying to get my beater into a playable guitar. Some people have a campfire acoustic. I like to keep around a couple of really inexpensive Strat style guitars that I can dink around with and put stuff on them, take stuff off of them, attempt repairs. I've got another actual Squier brand one. The neck's a little nicer, but the body's not as nice as this one, but I'm gonna do a refinish on it for a later video. Just gotta decide what color and if I wanna actually use nitro and spend that kind of money, or do I wanna do it with a less expensive dollar store paint or something. Let's see here what we got. That is pretty tight fitting, but the problem I have now is the end of the neck appears to not be going all the way down to the bottom of the neck pocket, which is kind of an issue if you ask me. I'm starting to think that maybe this neck didn't actually go with this body. And somebody just kind of worked at it to make it work and built themselves a guitar out of parts, which is highly likely. Because this body seems, so it's only a two-piece body, and it's odd because the joint is over here, and it may have a veneer on it, but I can't tell. But anyway, my point being, this is probably a nicer body than what would have been on a Tony Smith strap made in China. I don't know. Who knows? Who really knows? But anyway, we probably, that's about as good as it's gonna get. I mean, if anything now it's too tight, but I think too tight is probably a better problem to have than too loose. In my humble opinion. And then the real question is, do the neck screws line up? I don't know. But there you have it. There's the redneck way to fix a sloppy neck pocket. Y'all have a good one.